Hello. Um, this is my reflection for today's class, September 30th. My orange room in honor of Orange Shirt Day. So today my group presented about residential schools. It was very difficult to keep on task and not get too emotional during the presentation. I find that when talking about residential schools at all, I get very emotional, but I also think that is really important not to shy away from. So during my presentation, I found myself when I was talking starting to feel really overcome, but instead of stopping, I just acknowledged it and said, like, this is a very difficult topic, and I think it is fair to get emotional and express emotion when talking about it. And it was really affirming to see Mary then kind of say the same thing when she read the story about the boy, and she began crying herself. I think it really made me think about how effective it can be for teachers to show emotion and care about a topic. I used to teach at a Montessori school, and for Orange Shirt Day, I tried to bring in, child appropriate books for like 3 to 6 year olds, and to talk to them about, what it would be like to, imagine being separated from your family, and trying to talk to them in an age-appropriate way about these things, but also feeling like trying to convey that this is something serious. And it was really hard not to get emotional, but I found that the children really seem to get it. Like, I think that when you do allow yourself to express and convey that something is meaningful to you as a teacher, it comes across to students in a way that maybe makes the lesson come across or, sink in more deeply. So yeah, that was really, really affirming to see done by Mary in our class. And also I thought that with the graph, like the way of presenting graphs, with first showing the graph without the descriptors or the X and Y axis, and having the children talk about what it could be and guess, and then showing the numbers of Indigenous children's deaths per 1,000 in residential schools and the timeline. I thought that was really effective for having that information sink in, and the gravity of it, and making sure that you really take time with information like that, and not just have it be a statistic, but really have the severity of something like that be conveyed even with data, which is not an easy thing to do. I thought it was very humanizing, like a really human way of reflecting on and interpreting information that could otherwise be very, clinical and cold. So I thought that was a really interesting tool to integrate into teaching, especially with math. And I was also reflecting on the TRC calls to action that we read, and just thinking about how pretty much every aspect of our society has ramifications and reflections of residential schools in them, just thinking about like how about like fetal alcohol syndrome and how that was such a big part of the calls to action, and especially within the judicial system and education system, and how education around fetal alcohol syndrome is so important because alcohol is used as a coping mechanism, and drugs are used as coping mechanisms for people with trauma, and mostly from either direct residential school experience or ongoing like intergenerational experience, maybe from a parent who did go to residential school and then was abusive in one way or another. I was talking to my partner about this, and he grew up next to a res, and he had friends growing up who he would visit, and he was talking about how like he had one friend whose dad would come home and be like really scary whenever that happened. And yeah, it's so important to like put these things into context and people's lives into the context of intergenerational trauma and experience with these like larger systems that have caused so much damage and pain, in order to be able to think about how to move forward and how we can actually support people in what reconciliation can actually look like in educational systems. And I think it's really important that we are learning about these things in ways that put emotion and gravity behind them, and humanize them, and are also multidisciplinary. Like today Mary used graphs as well as a personal account and story, and then a reflective exercise with critical reading analysis, where we did the going into the different characters' goals and their like the things that they were up against and their values. That was such an interesting exercise to do. But I thought it was really cool that Mary was able to integrate already 3 different pedagogies or types of learning into one lesson, and all of them together made for something so effective. I think most people in the class were crying at some point, and I think again, that's really important. It's important to feel uncomfortable sometimes as educators and as learners especially, and not just shy away completely from things that make us feel bad because they feel bad, but understand that it's really, really important that we allow ourselves to feel bad sometimes, especially when we're learning, so that we can feel called to do something about it. I think Mary was talking about like allowing your students to feel a little bit of rage sometimes, and that how data, like presenting data in a certain way, can be really effective for that. And I thought that today's class was a really good example of that. Like, we were all really emotional, but and every part of the lesson itself and the readings led to us feeling very emotional about everything. But that's an important part of education too, not just dryly regurgitating facts. Like it's okay as educators, and maybe important to be emotive and to show that something is affecting you, and how that can be important for conveying information as well as the information itself. Okay, I will wrap it up there. Thank you so much for listening.